comes through you when you leave me room.
Hello everyone. This year we're going to work with the virtue practice in a new way. Now you can continue to work on with the virtue practice of last year for those of you that participated, or you can begin again and start with this new practice. Now this is an interesting thing to contemplate. Why do we practice in a development? In a certain sense, we can say that in the practice, we bring what we intend into the sphere of life. We can all think about the spiritual world. We can feel the content of our consciousness with great thoughts about the divine, about love. We may even profess God is love, or life's all about love. And yet, when it comes to how we live, we may still be living out of conditions and forms that are in a way contradictory or even completely against what we truly sense is the reason for who we are and why we're here. So, in the practice, we're bringing about changes to the sphere of life, not just changes to the content of our thought life, but changes to how we engage with life itself. So we're not, in a way, thinking spiritually in the privacy of our interior space and yet acting as though love does not exist, acting as though we have made agreements to be materialists. And this acting connects us to the will. The will is our volition, it's our intention, and it's our concentration of what we think into the deed, into what we do. And that's actually very significant, for the things that we do have an effect on the life sphere because we are living that reality. The things that we think, of course, have an effect on the world, but their effects are quite different. They don't change the way of which we engage in life necessarily, or perhaps they do, but over a long duration of time. So when we find a practice, we're actually bringing into the sphere of life a new way of being, of living, and that brings our life more in relationship to the truth and realities of the spiritual world that we know, or what we could say the divine we know, or the divine we wish to emulate in our lives. So we work with a practice because the practice makes these deep changes into the life sphere. Now we all have in our life body various habits, and those habits, that habitual will, is what actually carries us through things where we don't even have to think about it. We think about all of the things that we might do through the day that's very habitual. And some of those habits actually are health-giving, and some of those habits are actually health-disturbing. So when we're working with a will practice, a practice that we're going to enact, we want to get a sense that it is a health-giving practice. We're not going to practice something that is disturbing to our spiritual ideals, but actually is a reflection of our spiritual ideals. And there's an incredibly wonderful practice if we follow the pathway of the virtues throughout the spiritual year. And you'll see this is going to start with Aries and the first virtue of devotion. So you could imagine what healthy habit that I might install that allows me to live this picture of devotion. And we practice this daily for a month. Now, the other aspect of the will, which is very important to be aware of, is that we often do things not out of a habit or a condition that we've just lived with and in a way don't even consider whether it's healthy or unhealthy. It's just what we now do. We often do things because we want something. We could call it, in a certain sense, a selfish will. Like I choose to do something because I want to gain something. I choose to do something because it's going to give me something. Or I'll give you something because I'm going to receive something. And this kind of selfish will is also very natural to us. In a certain way, we're indoctrinated into habitual will, habitual deeds, habitual actions, or selfish will, selfish deeds, selfish actions. And not that that is such an error. That's kind of what most people are engaged with, even if they are unable to penetrate into those actions and really see, why do I do what I do? Am I good because actually I want to be patted on the head and seen as good? Am I giving because actually really I want you to give something to me? So we're trying to find in the practice of these virtues, not a habitual will that in a certain sense becomes something that I don't put my attention to, but just habitually go about doing it. Not a selfish will, but what I would call a truly loving will. This truly loving will has a particular quality about it. It, in a sense, loves for the sake of love. And I know that sounds strange because actually we don't know so much about love as we think we know about love, because we are indoctrinated to thinking love is certain things. But love has this deep connection to the spiritual world. God is love, the divine is love. And so how to live that, how to bring that in and through us in our relationship to our daily lives truly transforms something, not just in our lives, but in the lives of those around us. And in that sense, into the collective, into humanity. So what is this loving will? What is the will that will do a deed, a virtuous deed, not to gain anything, not to receive something, but because love will generate more love, because love is what the world needs, because love is the healing force that we ourselves can offer the other. So each month we will go through the virtue practice, and each month we will have an opportunity to also learn the eurythmy gesture that comes for each of the zodiac signs and follow that as a part of connecting our human physical being with this cosmic stream coming from these zodiac bodies that engage cosmically with our development. Now, we'll hear about that in the introduction from Marilyn Myers. So I suggest for those of you that do not know about eurythmy that you do listen to that first so that you can engage with that. And also each month we will bring the verse the 12 moods given by Rudolf Steiner for each of the zodiac. And this will allow us also to bring our interior world into this quality. So Seamus Maynard, who's a speech and drama teacher, will be speaking this verse because his capacity to bring his will into the words has this activity that can help us really get a sense of how the spoken word can also affect this. What do we bring the other? What is behind the words that we say? So this is going to be very different from last year. You can, for those of you that started the practice last year, continue that practice. You can go through the sequence monthly and follow through the thought life of each of the virtues, thinking about them. And then what we do with that stream into the mystery center of the heart. This year, we are also going to add, or you can do this separately, the virtue as a will practice, where we are going to find something that we can offer as a practical will activity, and we will follow a different stream to the heart. Now this stream, this will stream, comes through the top of the head and then passes over the forehead, down within the body towards the heart, in and around the heart. And then you can again enter into the quality of the virtue of the month. Now, Marilyn will express this in each eurythmy, after each eurythmy gesture, so that those of you that are following the gestures can actually follow that stream. And the stream is this image that what the content of my inner world has engaged with, whether that be through thinking, feeling, or as in this month through the will, what the content has engaged with in my interior world now engages into the stream of life that is working within my life body. And it is this life body that gives us health, but it is also known as a habit body. It actually is what allows us to sort of repeat the rhythms of our day. And that can be health-giving, but we can also bring more health into it. So we will take this opportunity each month, and it will be a daily practice that you can engage with, so that through the course of this month, and the monthly rhythm really works with this body of life, brings about these deep changes into the streams of our life body. Through this monthly rhythm, we will work with the practice, and we will see how inner development is actually not only so the content of my inner life is different, but the sphere of life, my daily life, begins to change, begins to develop because of it. So there's one actual important aspect of understanding all inner development, and that is to engage our attentive will to whatever exercise we're doing. So in the inner world, we have our thought processes, and of course, we all know what that is. We can think various thoughts. We also have our feeling life, and we know there is a big difference between a feeling experience that we're having compared to a thought that we're having. Even though often they're connected, the certain things you can think about will trigger a feeling, or certain feelings will have a change in effect on your thoughts. Nevertheless, when we're working with inner development, we're bringing our will, which is usually quite unconscious, the habitual will the things that we do, you can move your body all the time and have no sense that you're actually moving your body. You put your hands in the air, you shrug your shoulders. There's no consciousness to it. But we're trying to find this interior will activity. And in the first year, we did that by bringing our attention to a particular thought stream. We could call this a concentration or contemplation of thinking. So we're not just letting our thoughts wander and go wherever they want to go, associative or wherever they're called to, but rather we are engaging our intention, our intentional will to think on a particular theme of thought. We did that last year. We thought on a particular theme of thought, and then after that we worked with the verse and the stream into the heart. And those of you that didn't do last year, maybe go back and listen to a few, get a sense of what that was like. Now, the interesting thing is this will that is intentional and has attention into the area we wish to give it is essential for all inner development exercises. So to give an example of that, I usually do this very simple exercise. I suggest that you rub a piece of the cloth of the clothing you're wearing right now between your fingers, and using your attention, really try to feel the quality of that cloth. And, you're not trying to intellectualize and say, oh, this is this material or that material, but you're just really feeling, experiencing through the sense of touch, the quality of the cloth. And now, without changing what you're doing with your fingers, now move your attention to your fingers that are feeling the cloth. And now, if you can, push your attention into the fingers, not the cloth itself. And you'll notice this. Most of you will notice that your fingers are now more clear to you because that's where your attention is. The cloth, in a way, has dropped slightly to the background. And you can now push your attention back into the cloth and really get a sense of what this cloth feels like. And then you push your attention back into your fingers. And now your attention's now with the fingers that feel the cloth. And you'll see the potency of attention. But the question is who moves the attention? And there is your intention. Your intention moves your attention, and where your attention goes, so goes the stream of life. And that's where you then get the fullness of the experience. If your attention's not there, you won't be able to engage as fully. But you have to have the intention. Now that intention is what I refer to as an awakened will. In a certain sense, there is your free will. And in the word free will, we would say there is your spiritual will. So your spiritual will, your awakened spiritual will, is essential in all of the inner development exercises, because here lives the freedom. We're not trying to just create habits through consistent practice that eventually become another sleeping habit in my soul, even if it's a healthier habit. But rather, I'm using this free will, which is, in a sense, mine to use or not use. And in that way, it becomes a loving will when I am free to love or not love. I'm free to practice the virtue or not practice the virtue, And then I choose to do that. Real love, as we understand it from a spiritual perspective, is not a love that you have no choice about. And that's where this important free spiritual will is the awakening that's required to amplify each of the inner development exercises. So when we are doing an exercise, whether it be in thinking, in feeling, or when we're actually taking on a will exercise, it's that awakened spiritual will that is altering or choosing to engage your will. Try to be awake to that in every aspect of the practice, and the practice will be far more dynamic, and the fruits of the practice, whichever practice it is, will really come into fruition, into the sphere of life. Because many of us practice meditation and inner development exercises, but without that awakened spiritual will, we're not yet really working our interior world in freedom. And so for many people, the beginnings of the practice is just to awaken that, just to strengthen that. But if we know what we're working towards strengthening and we can start there, we can know that if I'm going to do a certain action of devotion, Aries, every day, that I'm not going to do that without being fully attentive in this awakened will and really present to it. And in that deep presence, in that deep intentional attention into the action, then I will begin this will practice. Now, each day after doing your activity, whichever that is that you choose, you will then focus on this quality of inner activity that occurs because of that intentional practice. And then you stream that through the top of the head, down the forehead, down in the body, in the front of the body towards the heart, in and around the heart. And then you can feel into the quality of the virtue devotion. This will have a deeply transformative effect, and you'll begin through the course of this year to have a direct experience of what it means to cultivate a loving will. Now, this loving will is so potent because you begin to be able to act in the world out of love. And although we sometimes feel that we're acting lovingly because we're conditioned in this, I'll give you something, you give me something. And there are many conditions to the will that are not actually love. But to know what love is in the will, we in a way have to cultivate it. And once you get a certain glimpse into how it is through each of these various virtues, you will begin to feel when this loving will wills towards the world. You will begin to feel that, yeah, I don't necessarily want to do certain things. I can't be asked to do certain things. I haven't got the energy for certain things. I don't want to do it because it doesn't give me anything. But therein lies, I don't have an inner impulse pulling me towards it. It's not desire making me do it. It's not a habit that I just do it and don't know why I do it. But here, when all of that falls away, you'll begin to understand this quality of love for love's sake. You will start to feel how love can move us in this world. And as you identify in yourself, you'll more readily be able to experience it and identify it in the world around us. And you will see there is so much more love than we realize. And yet there's also so much more love that's willing to be here if we will participate with it. Well, I look forward to speaking each month about the virtue, working with the verse with Seamus, working with the eurythmy, and recognizing the different ways of which we can engage our will so that we can awaken a loving will. Thank you, everybody. And if there are any questions or comments, please leave them in the chat and I will try to respond to them.
I am the one who shines through you when you leave.